And now, the International Vienna for Everyone. And now, the International Vienna for Everyone.
Thanks for coming all the way here.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for coming all the way here to Vienna too.
Yes, yeah. Loved it ever since I've gotten here.
Yeah? What do you love about it? What is the thing that you love the most about Vienna?
Oh, it's hard to pick what is the most because...
Just don't forget to always talk to the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Just say it right in front of it. You don't have to say sorry.
It's hard to pick my favorite thing because there really is so much to love about it. But I think the general ease of life, it feels like it's just easy to live here. It's easy to walk around the streets. It's easy to get around the city. It's easy to leave the city. It's easy to find whatever you're looking for. Maybe not if it's Sunday and the stores are closed, but...
Did you also have that problem that when you first moved here, you thought that the stores were open and then suddenly there's a Sunday where there's nothing at home that you can eat?
Thankfully, I was told this, so that one wasn't too much of a shock. Mm-hmm. What actually was the only thing that I kept doing incorrectly for the first 6 weeks that I was here is I didn't know that the sharp S, I thought it was a B. So I was pronouncing everything as if it had a B, and it took 6 weeks for someone to correct me because I hadn't started German classes at that point yet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like this when you're eating something and you have something in your teeth and people are not telling you that. Mm-hmm. Well, they should actually. That's what a good friend should do.
Yes.
It seems like it took 6 weeks for someone to tell you something similar.
Yeah.
And how come you moved here?
Well, I have always wanted to live in Europe. So my family is from Poland. Mm-hmm. My parents are back in the States, but we used to visit my family in Poland every summer when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. So I would spend 6 weeks in Poland and visiting somewhere else across Europe. So I always had this idea that I would eventually spend more time here. And when I was living in New York, which is where I was before coming here, this was
a big difference.
Huge difference. And we can get into that as well. But I was really trying to figure out a way for me to be able to work remotely. At the time, I was at a job that I was trying to figure out how I was going to approach them and let them know I was moving to Europe and if they would let me work from there. And different stars aligned, a lot of different things changed, and eventually I had the opportunity to go full-time freelancing, which was much easier for me to move here because I could manage my own schedule. And so I did 6 months when I first moved to Europe to figure out where I would like the most. So I was trying to keep an open mind as to where I would want to call home and to allow myself to have a little bit more fun with it. Especially living in New York for 4 years, I kind of wanted to escape the hustle and just kind of live a little freer for a bit. So I started in Poland because that was what I knew and what was a comfort zone. And because I speak the language, so that felt like an easier choice. And Vienna came after Poland. And then after Vienna also came Lisbon. And a bunch of small trips throughout those three. But those were where I spent the most time in that first 6 months.
It seems a bit of a drastic change considering that, as I understand, with your job, you're mainly targeting English-speaking audiences, and you leave the most English-speaking country in the world to move to a German-speaking country. How did you manage to go over this barrier?
So all my clients are still based in the States. And so I'm working typically U.S. hours, more specifically East Coast hours. And the first year that I was living in Europe, I was basically working at night. But at the time, I was still trying to figure out where home would be and bouncing around the different cities. And it was after I chose Vienna and selected Vienna that I realized I can't be working late into the night if I wanted to kind of ingrain myself in the community and make friends, like go for drinks or go for yoga classes. So I had to refigure my schedule and change the expectations with clients. So now I only make myself available for half the day in U.S. hours. And so I just start working a little bit earlier and then end my day by 20 here. So that's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the States. And then, I mean, I do have some European clients, but most of them still are back in the States. So it hasn't really affected the way that I do business.
How about the change in the weather? I mean, Florida is still summer, and it's going to be summer for a long time there.
Well, I was living in New York before this.
New York, yes, but you also spent some time in Florida. How long did you stay in New York?
New York, I was there for 4 years.
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah.
You already got used to harsh winters.
Well, I love I'm excited for Christmas markets. So they're coming up in like less than 4 weeks. And I think
Really? Already? It's still October.
November 10th, they open, at least some of them open.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I love the holiday season. And I think that autumn now is especially beautiful when all the colors change. So I think because I grew up in Florida and had warmth and the same thing all year round, the lack of change was a little, it was wonderful, but I definitely like seeing the seasons change. And I don't think that the winter is too harsh here. I think it's pretty similar to the temperatures and the season changes in New York. So,
how did you start with Nurtured Narratives? That's your website, right?
It's my company name, yeah.
Company.
So I started.
What is it about?
Yeah, so Nurtured Narratives is a storytelling company, and we work with brands and entrepreneurs who are focused on wanting to tell a story and is...
But what kind of story?
Yeah. Sorry, let me go backwards on that one. So it's a storytelling company focused on wellness-driven brands and entrepreneurs. So we're working with companies who either want to talk about the well-being of their employees, who want to talk about the well-being in the different programs that they have in their organization, or who in some way want to join the conversation about what wellness means to them and how they are playing a part in it. And so for those brands, I'm writing, whether it's survey reports, infographics, articles, any type of form of copy that is usually used in their sales and marketing efforts. So I've worked with a lot of brands in this way. Again, those brands are back in the States, and I'm supporting them in that copy creation. And then on the entrepreneur side, I'm working with more so small businesses and even like solopreneurs. And for them, I'm helping create copy that is more so website, professional bios, sometimes email newsletters, and any other sales materials that they need in order to get the word about their wellness-driven business. And these are the two different areas of how I support, but it has changed quite a lot over the last, I opened the company in 2019. So this is year 4 already of it.
When you look at the website, you seem so involved that until now I thought that it was your company.
It is my company.
It is your company.
Yeah.
And I'm right. It is your company. Okay. Because you mentioned I'm working with the company, and I thought
clients.
With the clients, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. But is there any different approach now that you move to Europe? Towards now you're an expat, and how is that different, or what can you say about the mental health of expat, but also entrepreneurs in difference from the entrepreneurs that are natives or locals?
I'm not sure if I have too many thoughts about that, because living in Europe and in this type of lifestyle has dramatically improved my mental health, because it is, at least for me in comparison to what I had, this is a lot slower and a lot easier to manage. And as an entrepreneur, I have also a lot more freedom to manage my schedule, to say yes to clients that I really want to work with, but to also say no to clients if I don't have the bandwidth or if our values don't connect. So there's a lot of different factors that come into play where I think that it's really given me more opportunities to say yes to the things that I want to say yes to, and be conscious about whether I'm ever taking on too much, so that I avoid burning out. But I don't think it has made too much of an impact, other than it's easier to work here.
Since you mentioned the burnout, I read your article about what to do after a burnout. Right? You read it with 12 tips, or I remember the number. There's an article with some tips. Yes. But when I read that, I thought, all right, I like that I'm getting tips what to do after burnout. And I would like to know what to do to avoid the burnout, which you just mentioned.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. I wish I had some of the studies ahead of me because I always like to use data and research. So you'll have to forgive me about the absence of that. But there's a slew of different ways, and I can definitely give tips, but the key to really preventing it is to recognize that no matter how many tips someone tells you, you're going to have to try them out for yourself and see if it works. Not every tip is going to work for every person because everyone requires something else in order for them to find their own balance. So that can sometimes feel confusing for folks if something doesn't work for them, and then they might not want to try like the next piece of advice. But it really is kind of like a try everything until something feels good. And some of the ways that you can do that is making pre-planned breaks throughout the day. So rather than spending 6 hours straight staring at the computer and not getting up to take a walk or to go get a cup of coffee or to even call a friend and have a quick conversation where you're especially for folks working from home, so that you talk to another human being rather than just, even if it's on meetings or if it's in your Google Docs or anything like that, taking a step away. And I like to plan those in my calendar. That's what works well for me. So every 4 or so hours, making sure that there's a 15-minute block there that I know I have to get up and kind of hit the reset button so that by the time I come back, I'm feeling more centered and going to prevent getting overwhelmed. So that's one method that really works for me. And then another one would also be kind of checking in with yourself every day, whether it is after work or at any other time that you feel like you have the space to ask yourself how you're doing. Because a lot of the times that burnout can kind of surprise you, but that's because we don't really take the time and the space to ask ourselves how we're feeling and how our body's doing, like how much tension is in our shoulders at the end of the workday, or how often are we getting headaches. And if you can do these more mental check-ins, which can just take 30 seconds, you can start to notice those patterns so that you can stop them before they spiral. So doing a mental check-in is also another really, really good way to do it. And then there's also, there's so much science that backs up the power of nature. So as much time as you can kind of sneak away to spend outside, even if it's just walking around the block, even if it's to run a quick errand, that can have dramatically positive effects on your mental health and also help prevent any worsening situations.
It's very nice, but how can I tell the difference between almost burning out the difference from that and to being very motivated and not quitting? So how can a person tell the difference? Because someone might think that, no, I can't stop now because I'm not a quitter. I'm very motivated to do this, and realize that actually it's not the way it works, and that is it's very close to burnout.
So burnout is actually much further. I think sometimes people think that burnout is just when you're tired, but burnout is when your entire body shuts down and you can't physically or mentally really function and work. Like that requires you to take a lot of time and a lot of space. It is a lot bigger than feeling fatigue and feeling like you can't concentrate. And I think that for a true good explanation, I think that I would turn more so to a therapist or to a psychologist, just being conscious of what my expertise is. I write a lot about it, but I'm always using tips from experts and the research to help me. But what I can say about keeping yourself determined is what helps me in that situation, what you were describing, is more so asking myself, do I even like what I'm doing? Is the reason that I'm blocking, that I feel blocked from this assignment or this task, does it align with what I actually want to be doing? Is this, because there might be a deeper reason why you feel disengaged to the work that you're doing, and that it's either disconnected from your values or it's not helping you approach a larger goal that you have. And so that disengagement or that lack of motivation could be tied to what is ahead of you isn't actually what's important to you.
Yeah, but what if a lot of people don't like what they're doing because they don't like the process, but they're doing it because the outcome that they want from it, they will most probably like it, or they think they will like it. So what should we do in the process while we're doing something that we don't like, but the goal is very gold to us?
I would try a different process. I think.
So you think we should also absolutely love the process too? Should enjoy it, not just the outcome?
Absolutely love it, I think would be a little bit too drastic, but I think life is too short for us. I mean, most of the time is going to be process. Very little are we going to spend in the results phase. And unfortunately, even when we get to a positive result, science also tells us that it passes really quickly because we move on to the next one and we want to get to that next result. We're much more geared to think about and remember the negative things that happen on the way to a result than we are to spend time celebrating that good thing that happens at the end. So I would absolutely say that if you really dislike the process, something does need to change, because it's going to lead to unhappiness. It's going to lead to more anxiety and more stress, and it's going to lead to tension and even into your physical body. So I would definitely find a way to be more friendly with the process. You don't have to be obsessed with it. It doesn't have to be something that is 100% perfect, but finding a way to get along with it and to optimize it for the way that you work. And again, it's going to look different for every person. It's not like a company can say, this is going to be the process for everyone and everyone has to follow it, because we're all very different, and flexibility is really important when figuring out your ideal working style.
Have you ever been close to burnout or had one?
I honestly don't think that I have gotten, now that I know more about it and I've heard the stories of people who have recovered from burnout, I think that maybe I was once going in that direction, but I've never actually been burnt out, no.
What stopped you? Did you manage to recognize it on time that you were too stressed out and you started doing something to avoid it?
Yeah.
What did you do exactly?
I'm pretty good at doing those mental check-ins. I'm pretty good at checking in with myself. So I have a lot of tools beyond just doing the mental check-ins. I do a lot of journaling. I write a lot of poetry. So depending on how my poetry sounds, I can kind of tell what my mood is. I also go to a lot of yoga classes. I also teach yoga, but whenever I'm a student, I can see throughout the class how my body's doing, whether there's a lot of tension. And then, of course, during that final resting phase in Shavasana, I can always get
What is that?
Shavasana is the last pose that you are in yoga. It's your final rest. So it's when you're laying down fully still after a yoga class, and it's the way to close the practice. And that can be really difficult for people because you're laying down with your thoughts, and it's a time for you to be just with yourself. But for me, I love it because that's like the time of the day when I am almost like forced to do the check-in, especially if I haven't had time to do it prior. So there's a variety of different tools that I've used to check in with myself.
When did you start to practice yoga?
I started practicing yoga in 2013, so 10 years ago. Mm-hmm.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
What brought you to that? You're looking for a more spiritual context to bring to your life, or just a sport for physical purposes, for physical improvement?
I think I was just curious in the very early stages of yoga and wanted to see what it was like. And yeah, I just immediately fell into it. I was very lucky that I really loved the teachers. This was back when I was living in Miami, Florida, and I really loved the teachers. I would go to specific classes so that when the teachers were at the different studios. And I mean, once I started, I immediately got a membership, and that's been my main form of movement ever since.
It's I'm also, as the way you started, I'm also very curious to try it.
Yeah, yoga?
Yes, I never tried it before, and I'm a bit afraid of trying it just out of curiosity, because it sometimes scares me, because sometimes it sounds like just like a trend, just like something people do because they see other people doing it, but not because they really like to do it. And finally, I want to hear a good statement. Why should I try yoga? will it bring me, if I'm looking only for physical practice to improve my physical, just the body and feel better and more healthy in a physical sense, is it the right thing? Or if I'm trying to connect more spiritually with myself and the nature and the world, which way should I go? Which is the right?
It totally depends on what you're looking for. There's a variety of different yoga practices. You can go to a yoga practice that is more powerful, more energized if you are looking for more of that physical movement and to really release a lot of that physical stress and challenge yourself. But you can also go to more relaxed classes where you're focused on stretching the muscle, staying still, and trying to expand your body and relaxation. You can also go to classes that are more meditation based if you are more focused on the spiritual or the breath work. There's just so many different types of yoga that there's absolutely no one way to practice. And there's also so many ways that you can be instructed to practice. So not only are there different styles of yoga, but there's also different teachers of yoga. Lots of amazing teachers in Vienna, by the way. I can definitely vouch for the high quality of teachers here. But every teacher has a different style. So one might talk about the spiritual side of yoga. One might focus purely on building self-confidence when you're in their classroom, or one might focus on just the physical, though I don't see that too much. People have a really great blend of bringing all sides of yoga into the classes here. But I would recommend trying different styles if you've never done it before. There's a lot of studios that also offer a basics or beginners class, which can be nice for you to start to associate the different names of the poses and to see what it feels like for your body to move into these different poses, and how whether you like the studio, whether you feel like there's a little sense of belonging in the place that you're in, and if you feel a connection to the teacher. But I would say give it a try, and then try different styles, different teachers, different studios, and see where you feel like you connect with. And then once you feel that sense of connection, just keep trying to expand there.
Sounds like an investment. You need to spend some money until you find out which one is the right thing to do. I mean, pretty much like university.
No, I wouldn't say it's like that. I mean, when I say try a different style, I mean, you can try one vinyasa class, you can try one yin yoga class, you can try one breathwork class, and then see, I felt really great in this one, so let me keep going to that. And a lot of studios also have like a first-time membership kind of offer that it could be more financially sustainable. But if it's something that you want to practice and expand into, I would figure out what works for you, because it will be different for everybody.
Has your spiritual journey changed since you started practicing yoga? You think you are in a different direction now that you wouldn't have been if you've never done yoga?
I definitely think I'm more centered and self-aware with yoga, because it does bring me to a closer level of consciousness within how my body's feeling, and again, those opportunities for checking in. And even more so when I went through my teacher training, I did have a spiritual phase when I was living in New York City, but I would say that I've outgrown that phase, so I'm much more I'm past the spiritual phase, but I still appreciate a lot of what spirituality can give us, but I focus more so on kind of I take some of the foundations with me when I practice.
What came first, writing poetry or yoga?
Poetry, for sure. I started writing poetry when I was like 10 years old.
How did this change with the yoga?
It didn't.
It didn't?
No.
You use writing so you write poetry to express yourself, don't you? Mm-hmm. What kind of poetry do you write?
I don't know if I would even give it a name. I just write what I feel, yeah. So there's no particular there's nothing that I would define it as. It's just how I'm feeling. It's usually when I am writing, I will ask myself, what is it that I need to hear? And that is kind of my prompt that I go off of. And I will then share that because I'm assuming, and usually it is the case, that I'm not the only one that feels this way, whether it is particularly anxious one day or feeling particularly delighted about life. So I like to share these different experiences with others who have also been through those experiences.
Who is your audience? Who are these people that you're saying that are the people that are sharing the same experiences? Where do you find them?
My poetry is shared on Instagram, so that's where my community mostly comes from. I've been sharing poetry on Instagram since, I think, also 2019, around the same time that maybe 2018, actually. It might have been before I launched my company. And so I've been nurturing a community there. And I've even made, when I was living in New York particularly, I made a lot of friends through that account, and there was a lot of poets on the ground in New York City. So I was meeting people I met on Instagram for coffees and going to workshops together. So that was especially nice when who you meet on the internet becomes a friend in real life.
Yeah.
And then even since then, I've had Zoom coffee dates with some of the other poets, like one in particular who lives in Canada. We sometimes connect every quarter to see what new projects we're up to. And then another poet that I follow, I just joined her poetry community. So it's a group of, I think, 50 or so poets that write together and just have a mutual chat group to ask for advice or vent or whatnot. And all of that comes from people that have interacted on Instagram.
There is also a writing community, English writing writers here in Vienna. It's called Sunday Writers Club. I don't know if you know that.
I think I've seen that on Meetup before, but I have not gone yet.
Yeah, Kate Gray is a novelist and an author. He's published 24 books, mainly in the UK. Mm-hmm. He is now a good friend of mine, and he was a guest in the podcast, and he is the co-founder of the Sunday Writers Club.
Very cool.
I've also been part of the club a couple of times, I think, in the past, nice. Especially during the pandemic, and it's a very nice club. I would recommend you take a look at that and maybe join one class just to see how it feels and how it is to... How do you feel about writing in groups or writing assignments or writing with a deadline? Have you ever written with a deadline before, besides the content creation part? Let's stay to the poetry.
With poetry and a deadline, no. But to answer the first question, I love writing in groups. I think that writing in groups, it has a certain level of energy. Even if you're not sharing, even if you're not talking, just being in the company of other people who are writing, I think somehow naturally increases the motivation across the room. So I always jump at the chance to being able to do that. And I've even joined the virtual writing groups, so that even adds motivation for me.
What is your writing process usually? Do you have
I don't have one.
You don't have one?
No,
You don't decide to write, it just comes and then you write it?
With poetry, that is pretty spontaneous. So it'll just be, if I have a free moment, then I'll think again, it's that mental check-in. How am I feeling? What's happening in this space? Is there anything that I want to express for myself? And I want to actually be better about creating a more consistent schedule with it, because it is kind of all over the place when it comes to the poetry. And I think part of that is because that's what I do as my side self-expression. It isn't part of the business, which I have to meet deadlines there, and that's where the money is coming in from. And so it's a little bit harder for me to create a process and dedicate specific time for the poetry side.
Have you lost any clients since AI got better and the ChatGPT came out?
No, I'm really not worried about AI when it comes to writing.
Why?
I think that there's nothing that will really truly compare to you being able to work with someone who understands your voice and your vision. I think some people are getting really, really good at asking the right prompts, because that is what is going to take to get something that you really like out of ChatGPT. And there's definitely ways to use it as a writer. But I think that when you are working with a writer who takes the time to understand your story, your message, how you want that, how they want that message to feel to the consumers or to whoever the audience is going to be. ChatGPT doesn't have feelings as much as it has a lot of really great data. And I think if you want something that has an emotional connection, it's going to require that human connection. And I'll also say something that ChatGPT can't do yet is interview people. And a lot of the content creation that I do, if not almost every piece of content creation that I focus on, is based on interview content. And so that interview is really priceless, because you're getting people to open up and you're digging through curious questions and you're displaying genuine interest into these people. And that's where you get the really good insights. That's where you get the really good quotes.
Well, now it's a very beginning phase of it, but you mentioned earlier that you also meet other writers or poets online and you talk to them and you discuss many things with them, mainly poetry. What if I see it in the near future that GPT will also have a face, and it will be almost like a real person on the other side, and either it will be talking or writing, which is very easy to turn it into talking, I think, by now. Why do you think the clients want to talk to him or her, or I don't know what the gender is going to be of an avatar of ChatGPT that you don't even have to write to? You can just talk like you're saying and have an interview and just sit in front of the computer with a camera and talk to this chatbot and say, hey, I want to write a piece about this. What do you think? And they can actually answer. Do you think that's impossible or that's not going to happen?
I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on that, because I would say that the clients that are in my target market, they would value the human connection and that human input over using something like that if it does exist. So honestly, I mean, when I was saying earlier about how you need to decide if the things that you're doing are close to your values and whatnot, one of my values is curiosity and creating that human connection. So I wouldn't work with brands who want to use like only ChatGPT and just jump to those solutions only for their content. So I mean, I'm truly not too worried about how it's going to affect writing.
Will you mention something about this or like this in your journaling workshop coming up on November 12th?
About AI?
Yeah.
No.
What will it be about? The journal.
So this journaling workshop is called Express Yoga Self, and it is...
it's about yoga.
It's yoga and journaling, together.
What?
Yeah, so it's...
How does it work?
I used to host it in New York back when I was living there, and it is a 2-hour workshop. The first hour is a gentle guided yoga flow, so it is a moment for you to connect to your physical self, physical body, without not too strenuous, so easy enough for anyone, even beginners, to follow along. It really is to build that self-awareness and just get you feeling centered. And then the next hour is focused on journaling and sharing. So I guide the group through a handful of different prompts, and everyone takes the time between 3 to 5 minutes for each prompt, sometimes a little bit longer if it looks like folks need the extra space. And then that's about 30 or so minutes where you have time to then connect to your mental self with those journaling prompts that I also provide advice if anyone's feeling stuck or if anyone's unsure of how to answer it. So it's a collaborative effort there, and I'm there to support. And then what is my favorite part, and from testimonials, a lot of other people's favorite parts, is for the last 30 minutes, I encourage and open up a sharing circle, which is completely optional. I know not everyone feels comfortable sharing and being vulnerable, and that's completely okay. It's also very beneficial to hear other people being vulnerable. So just being in the space can be really enlightening and feel comforting even to hear other experiences. So I also act as a guide to kind of get people to talk about what they wrote in some of their prompts and what surprised them about what came up. And yeah, we share how we feel, and then it also makes this group of strangers, well, at least maybe some folks come in knowing with each other, but you're in this room and you get to know everyone within 2 hours, and it's always people always leave with this like sense of lightness and definitely like smiling when they walk out. So I did that in New York, and it's been a while, and I'm really excited to then bring it into Vienna and see how the community here reacts.
Well, how do you find people to attend that? How do you reach out to people? Do you get along with other expats in Vienna or locals, or what is your community here?
Yeah. So this is the first time I'm hosting in Vienna, so I'm still figuring that out. It's a process. So I just launched it, I think, maybe last week or so, and communicating it to all the different expat groups. So the ones that I've already belonged to on Facebook, making sure that they're aware of the event coming up, posting it across my social media channels, which have a handful of folks who are local and in Vienna, posting it also on my poetry account because there's a handful of folks from Vienna there as well. And then I'm at 2 different yoga studios here, so telling my students after every class about the upcoming workshop in case they would like to join us. So the workshop itself will be held at La Selva Hot Yoga, which is one of the studios that I teach at.
Where is that?
It's over in the 5th District.
5th District.
Yeah. And then sorry.
No, go ahead.
I also teach at Fancy Pants Yoga, and so...
Fancy Pants?
Yes.
What is that?
That's the name. It's a great name, great teachers, great environment.
But why Fancy Pants?
You'll have to ask the founders that question.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you have the link to the workshop of November 12th? Or something where people can check it out?
Yeah, best way is you can search Express Yoga Self on Eventbrite, but you can also email me.
If there is a link on Eventbrite, then it's already in the description.
Then great. Then that's where we can put it. But yeah, I'm still reaching out to folks, figuring out. But I also put posters up in the different yoga studios, and also looking at the different Vienna Instagram accounts that share upcoming events, and have been messaging that with them to see if we can do a sponsored post or just get included in some of the upcoming events. So slowly figuring out how to market the event here.
Well, I hope people listen to this podcast will join as well.
Yes.
Do you have a limited number of people?
Do have a limited number of people because I find that people are more likely to share when it feels cozy and not too intimidating with a large number of folks. So I would probably cap the absolute most I would probably do is 15. I probably wouldn't want to go past that number.
That's nice and intimate.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a little bit less pressure, especially with the sharing portion when it's that size.
I would only join if there's something there.
What do you mean?
Your cat.
Will
you bring your cat?
I will.
Where's your cat?
My cat is at home in my apartment.
Here in Vienna?
Yes, I brought him over.
Yeah, I read that you came over here with your cat.
Exactly.
What's his name or her name?
It's him, and it's Oliver. He is actually turning 12 on Halloween.
12?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's an old buddy, but still young at heart.
What kind of cat?
I have no idea. Never done any type of genetic testing on him, but he does have quite long hair. So some people think he's a Maine Coon, but I don't think he's quite that big. But he is blonde, very, very fluffy, handsome gentleman. And yeah, I brought him over, not the first year when I was still exploring where I wanted to live, but once I decided on Vienna, I brought him to Vienna. He even has an Austrian pet passport.
Yeah.
So he is... Yeah.
Look at him.
Yeah, he's living the life.
You had him since he was little, or?
Yeah, I got him
30 days, 40
when
days?
I was still in university.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What did you study?
I studied advertising.
You studied advertising?
Yeah.
Where?
At the University of Florida, so in Florida. And then I worked in various different advertising agencies, both in Miami and then New York City before I started my...
Did you work in Madison Avenue? Were you a mad woman?
No, it's funny that like there's not that many agencies on Madison Avenue. I think that was
No,
like, in the
not
olden
anymore?
days. I mean, there's still some, but the agencies are spread over all of Manhattan, Brooklyn, throughout the city. I mean, even Jersey. I mean, there's a lot of different office spaces. I worked in the financial district. I worked even near Times Square, and then where else was one office? Also in the garment district. But one of our offices also opened near the West Village. So yeah. There's definitely some on Madison Avenue, but it's expanded.
But you've seen Mad Men, right?
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
And I've read this after reading a couple of books from Ogilvy, I strongly believe that Mad Men is highly based on the first Ogilvy studio that he opened, the first agency.
Yeah, it could be. It very much could be.
It's very like...
I mean, Ogilvy's still an amazing company. One of my best friends works there in the city, and it's...
in New York?
Yeah.
How does it feel now? But the man is not there anymore. Are they still sharing the philosophy and going and following his tracks? Or?
That I wouldn't be able to answer to since I haven't worked at Ogilvy.
But you know more about advertising in New York. You could tell from their advertising. Are they that smart still, or?
Do you mean just people who work in?
No, the agency in general, like their advertising.
Ogilvy?
Do they? Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, they're still absolutely fantastic at the top of the game, win a lot of awards, have great clients. Yeah, absolutely.
What did you think about the series, Mad Men?
It's been a while since I watched it, but I loved it. Yeah, it's super entertaining.
How accurate is that when it comes to advertising?
I mean, not accurate at all anymore.
No. Well, not now, but you probably have studied a little bit of history of advertising as well when you studied in university.
Yes, for sure, related to how things used to be. And I mean, of course, a lot of it is dramatized, but based on truth. But I mean, that's set decades ago, so it's very different.
Well, besides the format, because I understand advertising agencies don't paint anymore, or I don't know what they used to do, maybe less TV commercials. But what changed? What is different now about advertising? I love to talk about advertising. I know nothing about advertising, but I love nice commercials and posters and smart ones.
I mean, I would say everything has really changed, other than the fact that at the end of the day, they're creating content or ads that are meeting the unique needs of their clients, but outside of that, everything has changed. So the office spaces have changed. A lot of people have gone into open office spaces. So in Mad Men, you see it very closed off, and everyone has their offices, and that's it. It kind of feels cold and claustrophobic. Yes. So a lot of people have embraced different types of office styles, especially after the pandemic. There's a lot more spaces for collaboration and a lot more spaces to be flexible with how you want to work. So if you need a quiet space, a lot of companies have that now, or if you want to be more in a brainstorm session, there's different spaces for that. So yeah, even office space has changed. I would also say that the diversity has changed quite a bit. I mean, of course, Mad Men was very male heavy and also very white. So now, I mean, advertising really, really cares about diversity, because if you want to speak to a diverse audience, then you better be diverse. Then the people creating the content must be diverse. So advertising has a lot of diversity goals, and they're very open about sharing what their diversity levels are and what their initiatives are. So office space, the diversity of teams has changed. I mean, even the tools that people have dramatically shifted. I mean, social media didn't exist when Mad Men was around. I mean, AI didn't exist. I mean, I could go on and on.
But talking about diversity, because it feels sometimes, especially in ads, that it feels like they're just being politically correct with the ads, and they are including people from different backgrounds and origins and skin colors, but then they don't seem very accurate in terms of diversity. For example, they just change, they just put the person in a situation, and then in different situations they put people with different skin colors, but the situations seem to match to all the people of different colors. While I would like to see how they really represent the issues and the problems from those different societies and communities, and I don't see that reflected very often. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I would need you to repeat.
It's a bit like let's say like in the movies, for example, how they make the Ariel. You see the Disney movie, they just made her black, and it seems like it's just for the sake of having a main character black. Or how they make the Queen of England black in a series, and that was talking about Queen of England that was centuries ago, which we know that it wasn't black back in the day. It was also a major discussion on the internet about it.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's what I think. They just putting people with different skin colors, and it's like, yeah, that's it. We're fine. Now we are politically correct, and now we are diverse, and that's it. But that's not fair.
No, I would disagree with that line of thinking. I think that it was a fantastic thing that they changed Ariel, because ever since Disney's existence, other than the one that was in New Orleans, I'm forgetting that princess's name, but all of the little black girls that watch Disney never got to see themselves as a Disney princess.
That's exactly what I'm saying. How are black girls now seeing themselves in Ariel?
I mean,
and in the Queen of England?
I can't speak to the Queen of England, but I can speak to the Little Mermaid. I mean, just watching the videos of these little girls across social media, seeing themselves and how excited they were to go to the movies and finally feel like there's a princess that looks like me. I mean, representation is really, really important. And I personally don't think it's about political correctness. I think it is about fixing the fact that it has been done wrong for a really long time. And it might shock some people. Some people might be uncomfortable, but it is uncomfortable because it's uncomfortable to admit that things have not been done in a way of equal representation.
I would say it's more uncommon rather than uncomfortable.
A lot of people get uncomfortable about it. Yeah.
Why?
I mean, you just got to look at Instagram comments and Facebook comments to see how uncomfortable people get. So you have to have these conversations. You have to make these changes in order for change to happen. And this is just one part of it, is to make sure that people are included. And I would challenge people who say, well, why would you change it? This doesn't belong. I would ask you to consider, why do you think that doesn't belong? Just because it was once done a certain way doesn't mean it needs to be done that way. Needs to be done that way moving forward.
But it also happens very often, also in commercials, that we see that still the main character is a white girl or boy, and there are just two supporting characters. Most probably one is Asian and the other one is black. They do this also as well very often. And this is what I'm talking about. They try to be inclusive and diverse, but it's just placing the image there rather than giving them a role and an important part in it's either the movie or the commercial.
Yeah, there's definitely still progress to be made, of course. I mean, we're just at the beginning stages where people are finally being, people have been vocal for a very long time, but I think people are finally listening. So I think that this is when we can make some of those more directional shifts, so it's not just in supporting roles. There's a friend of mine who I worked with in New York City who did this really, really fantastic campaign. I think it was maybe 2017, 2018, maybe around then, but it was called Starring John Cho. So John Cho is a really excellent Asian actor, but he wasn't getting like the Tom Cruise type roles. And so what my friend did was he replaced all the movie posters of really famous movies. So like, I don't know, give it the Titanic, give it... movie names are not coming to me. Indiana Jones, like every kind of like famous movie title, and then photoshopped John Cho to be the main actor. And he like published a series of these different movie posters replaced with John Cho, and it went viral, got a lot of attention. He even met John Cho like later on and got to talk to him, and it was a really great conversation starter about how Asian Americans weren't being represented in a lot of the movies. And again, it starts a conversation, and those conversations need to keep going. But I was pleasantly surprised recently. I just watched Past Lives, which was fantastic movie. 2 main characters that are Asian, and they use South Korean within the movie, which I also thought was really authentic and lovely. So if we can get more of that, I think that hopefully that's the direction that we're going.
Well, I must say that in the past 2 years we got a lot of that, especially South Korean movies. For example, was this other one called Broker. I don't know if you saw that. It's also from South Korea, and the main character is also the main character in Parasite. You remember the movie Parasite? It was a big deal in 2019.
I think I avoided it because isn't that the one that was pandemic related?
No, that's Contagion.
Okay.
That's from 2011.
Okay.
But Parasite was in the Oscars of 2020, right in the beginning of the pandemic, but it came out in 2019. It was a great, fantastic movie, like totally deserved all the attention that it got, and you should definitely watch it.
Okay.
So since that, the South Korean cinema has taken a lot of attention. But it seems like there's something about the South Korea rather than, I can't say Asian cinema, I can say South Korean. So it seems like there are some people there who are being even smarter or are working harder than the rest of Asia to get
I wouldn't say that either. That's generalizing.
But that maybe I'm putting it in the wrong words. But I mean that they are bringing just movies from South Korea recently, not from the rest of Asia, to Hollywood.
I'm not a movie buff in order to agree or disagree, but I would definitely not discount all of the other awesome Asian actors that aren't coming from South Korea. And the actress in Past Lives is also
from South Korea. But that's what I'm saying. Yes, we see a lot of South Korea recently, but we're not seeing a lot from the other countries in Asia. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not a movie buff, so I wouldn't be able to say, but the actress that's in Past Lives is in a lot of other U.S. movies and shows. So she's
Greta. I forgot her last name. Greta Lee. I think that's the last name is Lee.
But she's visibly has a lot of other great roles. So it's she also is more in like the mainstream too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's you should definitely check out Parasite, and this Broker was a good Asian movie that I can totally recommend. And also Past Lives, such a very simple story.
Yeah.
And
very heartfelt.
Yeah. And if you tell someone that haven't seen the movie, it's if you read them the log line or something, it's about 2 people who meet 24 years later or something, childhood friends who meet 24 years later. People say, there's nothing special about it. Why would I watch a movie like that? But then when you watch the movie, you see how nice the story was told, and in such a simple way. It's just conversation and dialogues and walking around New York City and talking. Mm-hmm. So you think that it would have been the same if it was not related to the U.S., that some part of it wasn't, maybe it was another country, not the U.S., that South Korea was related to in the movie?
Yeah, why not?
No, I mean, its fame was affected by the fact that it was related to the U.S., so then A24, the distribution company in New York, picked it up and decided to distribute it. Would they have done it if it wasn't shot also in New York and talking about American life and all that?
I don't feel like I have any opinion on that. I no experience that could lend an educated answer or guess to that.
Yeah. All right. No, just thinking out loud, if it helped to make the movie famous, not better. The movie is definitely very good and it would have been as good as it is, even if it was shot in another country. But I'm just discussing about its fame. Well, your Instagram account where people can read your poetry is already on as a link in the description, where also the Eventbrite link for the workshop on November 12th is.
Perfect.
And I have to repeat that it's limited to 15 people. So if someone wants to join, you have to do it now, right? Like right now.
Yes, exactly.
Don't put it on your calendar as a task or a reminder for later. Just do it now. It takes 2 minutes to sign up for the event, for the workshop. Where it's going to be again? Can you repeat the location?
La Selva Hot Yoga over in the 5th District. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a very convenient location for everyone. It's like right in the heart of
Right off of U4. Super easy.
All right. It was great talking to you.
You as well.
Thank you very
for
much.
having me.
Bye. Bye, everyone.